Well, hello again. It's the 5th of July. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? This is Friday. I thought I'd do one this afternoon because it's quite nice out here, and I've been watching a little bit of codswallop as usual on the part of the Piffle-Peddlers. So I thought I'd make a video today just in case I don't get time to do one tomorrow. Now, I see the Soul Foundation has brought out a white paper saying ETs could be a biohazard. And they've got all these protocols, you know, we need a go team. As I've said before, you know, the go team's got to sit around drinking coffee. So they can't drive anywhere, they can't fly like plane or anything like that. So they're like coiled springs, ready to launch themselves at any of this biomaterial that might be left by ETs. Of course, you know, one of the co-founders of the Soul Foundation, Gary Nolan, had ETs in his bedroom for weeks on end, and he seemed to suffer no ill effects whatsoever. So I think we can put a line through the Soul Foundation's white paper on biohazards from ETs and how to deal with them. It's never going to occur, of course, because there's never ever going to be any ETs coming here. There never has been any ETs coming here, and you know, if there's no ETs, there's no biohazard, is there? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. So I think that's another thing the Soul Foundation's coughed up just to say, hey, look what we're doing with your money. This is what we're doing with your money. And the author of that white paper is not on the white paper. You have to email the Soul Foundation to find out who wrote it, who is responsible for it, you know. Loads and loads and loads of references, 3 pages of references, you know. They must think, the people that are putting money into the Soul Foundation must think, wow, we're getting value for money here. Of course, it's all completely irrelevant because none of it is ever going to be called upon. So I put a line through the Soul Foundation and what they're doing with regard to their white papers. It's all rubbish, you know. They've got the arrogance to suggest what the UK government should be doing. Really? This was the other one, you know. Jon Stewart has validated Bob Lazar. It's quite amazing, really. No one else has been able to do that. Bob Lazar's never been able to produce any of his certificates that he supposedly got from these universities that have never heard of him. He doesn't appear in any of the yearbooks. He doesn't want to know anything about Arrow, because Arrow will be able to check him out and find out that he's a fantasist. So Jon Stewart's validation skills, I would say, are 0. I mean, he validated the silly rubber alien interview video, complete and utter nonsense. And now he's saying he's validated Bob Lazar. And now we know where he got the DNI from. You know, he was saying, whoa, you know, this guy made this video in 1996. How could he have known about the alien interview in 1996? How could they have known about the DNI back then? And of course, Jon Stewart is a fanboy of all this stuff. He knows all about Bob Lazar. He knows Bob Lazar mentioned the DNI, and he had the DNI on his W2 form back in 1988. This is all rubbish, you know, it's all contrived drivel. So if you can validate anything with regard to Bob Lazar's educational background, I'd love to hear from you. You know, it just seems odd to me that he can be erased from every yearbook. He can't produce any certificates. He can't produce any coursework that he did at Caltech or MIT. No one there's ever heard of it. And people out there think he's genuine. You know, the Bob Lazar is the real thing. That Jon Stewart has validated him. It's hilarious. It's beyond hilarious. Danny Sheehan gave me a good laugh as well this week. He said that we have 2 recovered ET craft that are operational. I suppose Gary Nolan uses one to nip down the shops Saturday morning for his pint of milk and his dog food. And we've been flying them. They may have been gifted. He doesn't know if they were shot down or gifted. As I've said before, we're not going to be able to shoot them down. No ETs are going to leave technology here or biology here for us to study so that we can so that we can back engineer the technology and look at the biology and then get to them and potentially destroy them. It's completely ludicrous. You'd think someone like Danny Sheehan would have better critical thinking ability to come out with this bloody rubbish. 2 recovered ET craft that are operational. Absolute drivel. Absolute rubbish. If we have 2 operational ET craft, and that's proven to be the case, with tangible evidence, I will eat that Land Cruiser. See that Land Cruiser behind me? I will eat it. Every square centimetre of it, every nut and bolt, I will eat. I'll put a napkin on, get the spanners out, and I will eat that Toyota Land Cruiser. It's complete and utter rubbish. So just imagine, okay, you've been gifted an alien spacecraft. So you get on board. Ceiling's going to be a bit low because they're all about 4 foot tall, these aliens, aren't they? You know, like that. Oh. So you're walking around inside it. What does the word start look like in the ET language? I mean, it's going to be all squiggles everywhere, isn't it? All the controls, everything, squiggles. How are you going to know what start is, what stop is, what up and down are? What do any of the warnings mean? It's complete and utter rubbish. Ludicrous. But Danny Sheehan is not very good at critical thinking. He might be a good lawyer. I just hope I don't find out. Personal opinion. Mr. Sheehan, personal opinion. His mate, apparently, a guy called Costa Macarius, is pushing etletstalk.com. Now, apparently he's in his 14th year of ET contact. Now, using CE5, okay, so there's a tie in there with Greer, I suspect. It's a Piffle-Peddling club. There's a core of people. More and more people are beginning to realise this, as I've said, you know, the balloon, the ET balloon, you know, more science fiction stories. They just cannot keep that balloon inflated, so they're coming out with all this bloody rubbish. So he reckons he's in the 14th year of ET contact. Now, how do we know that's not true? How do we know that's complete and utter rubbish? Because if Mr. Costa Macarius could really contact ETs, he would have a Nobel Prize. We would know that we are not alone in the universe, in the galaxy. That monumental announcement would have been made. It hasn't been. This is probably just going to be taking people out in the desert. They sit in deck chairs like this one, and they look at moving lights in the sky. And it's going to be somewhere out in the desert near an airport where there's a turning point. You know, you get the lights coming towards you, and they turn away. That's all it's going to be. No one can possibly summon ET using CE5, using my consciousness. I mean, most of these people look unconscious anyway. And they use their consciousness to summon ET? How arrogant is that? Really? Now, Danny Sheehan apparently is a mate of this guy, so I'm assuming he supports this. You know, and if his critical thinking ability is so poor that it can allow him to believe we have operational recovered ET craft, at least 2 of them, then he probably believes what this Costa fella is telling him about communicating with ETs. CE5. He probably believes that because his critical thinking ability is not developed enough to let him not believe it. It's like all these people. I know this is happening. You know, professional people stand up in front of a bunch of academics and say, I know this is happening. We're interacting with ETs. Well, how do you know? Oh, well, I was told by so-and-so. Do you have any personal experience of ET or ET material? Oh, no, no. But I've been told by people I think are credible. Therefore, it must be true. What kind of critical thinking ability is that? An admiral, you know? And a colonel who's been involved in all these projects, part of the UAP task force, you know. He's worked for all these defence contractors, and he has to be told this is going on, and he chooses to believe it because he says, well, look at who's saying it. You know, people like David Grush and Lurley Zondo have told him. Eric Davis is the key to this. Subpoena Eric Davis. Might be Hal Puthoff as well. Those two. Get those two subpoenaed and get them in front of Congress. They are the root of all of this. It spreads like cancer, you know. Oh, Eric Davis told me it's true, so it must be true. You know, he's a professional, he's got a PhD, he's working on this stuff. He tells me it's true, I believe it. Because so many people out there want to believe it, and they have such poor critical thinking ability, they will then spread that as truth. And more people believe, oh, well, if he said it, that's good enough for me. You know, Tim Burchett says that. Decorated military guy. If he says it, that's good enough for me. No. When it comes to this, it's such a monumental announcement that we are not alone in the galaxy or in the universe. It needs to be backed up with tangible evidence. You're interacting with aliens? Take a selfie with one. Show us an alien. Take one to 60 minutes. You've got some ET materials. Let's get them analysed by some independent, reputable universities. See what they say. Don't just stand there on a lectern telling everybody it's real, it's all happening. I know because somebody told me. Pathetic. As I said before, pathetic piffle-peddlers. So no one's using CE5 to contact ETs, you know, etletstalk.com, really? It's a grift if I've ever seen one. And they're doing it tomorrow if you want to get your deck chair and go out in the desert, but I think you're going to have to pay them $5,000. Glenn Dennis has been interviewed. How old are these interviews? You know, how long's Glenn Dennis been dead? He's the mortician that was at Roswell on July the 7th. We know that Glenn Dennis is lying because we know that the wreckage was in, was in the field for 3 weeks by then. You know? He said they got suckers on the end of their fingers. You know, suckers, little suckers. You know, like reptiles, little geckos. They got suckers on the end of their fingers. Glenn Dennis said these little ETs had suckers on the end of their fingers. Well, the only suckers are the suckers that believe all this rubbish and that part money to hear more of it and read more about it and watch more about it on DVDs and go to these meetings and buy the books. They're the suckers because it's rubbish. A critter with suckers on the end of its fingers is not going to be able to go through an industrial revolution. It's not going to be able to build machines. You can't build machines. You wouldn't have the physical dexterity to be able to do it. You wouldn't be able to build electronic circuit boards. You know, you have to go through an evolution, industrial, technological evolution. You know, when you think of our old electronics, you know, with old tube amplifiers and all that sort of stuff, well, another intelligent species would probably go through a similar evolution. And it gets better and better and better and better until you end up with the little tiny semiconductors we've got today. Little surface mount chips, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But they would have had to have gone through all that. You certainly wouldn't be able to build any surface mount stuff with suckers on the end of your fingers. You wouldn't be able to build a tube amplifier with suckers on the end of your fingers. How are you going to manipulate the components? You know, it's complete and utter rubbish. Glenn Dennis, of course, has changed his story a number of times. Put a line through Glenn Dennis. Anything to do with Roswell, put a line through it. It's rubbish. I said before, Matt Brazel found the Roswell wreckage on June the 14th. Nothing whatsoever to do with July the 7th. Any kind of storm. He described it as balsa wood sticks, strips of rubber, tin foil, cardboard and scotch tape. That's what Brazel found in his field. That was he was describing the Roswell wreckage. Does that Does that combination of components suggest to you an alien spacecraft? If you codge those components together, could you fly around the galaxy with it? I suspect not. Glenn Dennis, anything to do with Roswell, put a line through it. Complete and utter rubbish. And last but not least, I saw something about free energy this week, and that's complete and utter rubbish as well. Nothing in nature is free. You've probably noticed that. You know, the sun, the energy from the sun is not free. The sun burns, I don't know, 8 million tons of hydrogen per second, and it will run out of hydrogen one day. You know, fortunately, it's not going to be this weekend, but it's not free. And that costs the sun fuel. There's not energy all around us. Even if there was, you would need a device to convert that energy into energy we could use. 240 volt mains to power your house. Instead of a generator, you'd have this free energy box. You'd probably buy it from Elon Musk. You know, the Musk free energy, zero point company. You'd probably buy it from him. If this was real, Tesla, SpaceX, Google and Amazon would all be powered with free energy. They're not, are they? SpaceX would not be using chemical rockets. Still struggling with chemical rockets to get the Starship to work properly. They would have exotic propulsion. This is all complete and utter rubbish. If anyone says to you they know free energy is real, say, ask them if they pay an electricity bill. And if they say no, say, you know, have you got a water mill, windmill, solar panels, any normal sort of technology for getting electricity free? And and if they say, well, yeah, I've got solar panels, you know, so they don't count. You know, if you're generating power with a water wheel, if you're generating power with a windmill or solar panels, that's not, it's kind of free energy, but it's not the sort of free energy they're talking about. They're talking about free energy from the 0 point. You get a box, it converts this energy that supposedly is all around us into energy we can use. So if anyone tells you free energy is real, they know free energy is real, ask them if they have to pay an electricity bill. And if they say no, ask them about the solar panels, ask them how they generate their power. It won't be from the 0 point, I guarantee it. People say, oh yeah, you can make free energy, it's simple, you know. Really? Well, give us a demonstration. If it's simple, show us. Let people come around and inspect the device. I think I've said this before, but a work colleague that I had a few years back now was a bit of a nutcase. I know you find it hard to believe that the company that I work for would actually employ nutcases, but this guy was a nutcase. He said, oh, he's a free energy machine. With a team, he's working on this free energy machine. And he said, if you want to sign an NDA, you can come along to a demonstration. And I said, would I be able to inspect the device? And he said, no. And I said, well, I wouldn't waste my time. It's all smoke and mirrors. There is nothing to it. There's nothing to free energy. There's nothing to ET coming here. There's certainly nothing to ET crashing here. And there's certainly nothing to us having operational ET craft. Complete and utter rubbish. All right, well, that's my weekly rant from what I've seen this week from the pathetic science fiction Piffle-Peddlers. They get more and more pathetic. There's getting less and less. I said it last week, I think. You know, it's more science fiction stories. It's very, very hard trying to hold this, keep any pressure in this ET's coming here balloon. It's getting more and more pathetic every week. Alright, well, as always, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching. And maybe I'll catch you again.